Good morning, friends. Today we are continuing with international efforts to conserve biodiversity. There are three broad areas that we want to cover today. One is the convention, that is Convention on Biological Diversity. Other major topic that we want to cover is the Man and Biosphere Program. And the third one that we are dealing with is the World Heritage Site, usme especially the natural heritage site that is important for our exams is something that we have to slightly look at. While these are three broad areas, under Convention on Biological Diversity, there are lots of sub-conventions or sub-protocols that we have to study. All those things would be there. Now, before I start Convention on Biological Diversity, the first topic, uh, there's a small disclaimer that on this issue of Convention on Biological Diversity, nothing has changed since last year. 2020 was supposed to be a big year for biodiversity because in May, the 15th meet, 15th COP of Convention on Biological Diversity was supposed to be held. But because of COVID-19, it was shifted to October 2019. Sorry, because of COVID-19, it was shifted to October 2020. And then in October 2020, also it could not be held. It shifted to May 2021, the last month. It could not be held then also. Now it has been shifted to October 2021. So the big meet, which was to decide the future course of action for biodiversity, that meet hasn't taken place. And that's why the changes that would have come under this Convention on Biological Diversity, under perhaps we would have come up with a new strategy for next 10 years and all, nothing that sort of has happened. And therefore, this part, the first part, Convention on Biological Diversity, is more or less same as we had done last year. Okay, last year हमने जब पढ़ा था तो बोला था the meeting last year when we started it, we said that the meeting would be a COP would be held in October 2020. This year when we are studying, we are saying that COP would be held in October 2021. COP, Conference of Parties on Convention on Biological Diversity, has not happened. So after October, there would be lots of change in the method that we cover this. Now, the 2020 year was supposed to be so big that this year was also known as super year, especially super year for biodiversity, because it was in this year we would see that in 2010 we had come up with a strategic plan for biodiversity. जिसमें 2010 से 2020 तक we had some strategic targets. In 2020, we were supposed to finish those targets and start a new target, and that's why this whole year 2020 was called super year of biodiversity. Now this was like the news thing. Now come to what is Convention on Biological Diversity. Name dekho, Convention on Biological Diversity. It's a convention which is focused on protection of biodiversity. We are studying it under sorry, we are studying it under international efforts to protect biodiversity. So this is an international convention which is focused on protection of biodiversity. This is the most basic thing that you should keep in mind. Harshita ji, aap mute pe nahi hai. Now, this convention was approved in 1992. In 1992, an Earth Summit had occurred and three big environment-related conventions were approved there. One was this convention, United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. Other was United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We would study it when we come to climate change. And the third one was related to desertification, Convention to Combat Desertification. So three major conventions were approved in 1992 Earth Summit. This came into force on 29 December 1993. Now, this convention has three objectives. Overall, you understand, it should be focused on protection of biodiversity. So conservation is something that it is primarily focused upon. But at the same time, conservation should not just mean that keep this area inviolable. No human activity, nothing would be allowed. We have to go for economic development also, and therefore it is also focused on sustainable use of component of biodiversity. बायोडाइवर्सिटी से जो हमें सर्विसेज मिलती हैं, we should be able to use it, but in a sustainable manner. So one target, one goal, one objective is conservation, but other is to ensure that we are going for sustainable use, not the unsustainable use. And third major objective of this convention is fair and equitable sharing of benefits. What is meant by fair and equitable sharing of benefits? Biodiversity की वजह से जो benefits हो रहे हैं, for example, let's say in one of our forests we find a species of plant which has been preserved for many centuries by the tribal people there. Now, some private company finds that plant and identifies the major component of that plant that can have medicinal use. Now, that private company will benefit a lot from those discoveries, but at the same time, the local community should also benefit from there, who have for centuries preserved that particular plant. So, under Convention on Biological Diversity, another major component, other than conservation, other than sustainable use, was to ensure that the benefits because of utilization of genetic resources, because of utilization of biodiversity, should be equitably distributed, should be fairly distributed. These are the three key functions of, or three key objectives of Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. Now, let's come to membership. The membership, like more than 190 countries are members. India also ratified this convention in 1994, and thus India has been a member. One important aspect to note here is USA. It signed the convention in 1993, but has not ratified it yet. Now, come to if a country signs this convention. If a country signs this convention, what is that country supposed to do? Like India is a signatory of Convention on Biological Diversity. What are our commitments? What are we supposed to do? One, like I have listed certain things here. One is you have to identify and monitor what are the important components of biodiversity in your country. Every country is supposed to do that. Second, establish protected areas. आप जो national park, biodiversity conservation reserves or wildlife sanctuaries establish कर रहे हैं, so every country is supposed to do that. Then third, rehabilitating degraded ecosystem and recovery of threatened species. This is also again by common sense you would understand that if there's an international agreement, convention on biological diversity, and if a country agrees to join it, it would be doing something like this. Then preserving and maintaining traditional knowledge. Please note this. So, sometimes what happens is when we talk about biological diversity or at international forums, it becomes very modernistic in nature, where we'll use the latest technology, the traditional methods which tribals have been using, उसे ignore कर देंगे. But here, right from the beginning, focus was on ensuring that no matter what, the traditional knowledge is always more sustainable, more beneficial, and that also needs to be promoted. And for this, involvement of indigenous people, involvement of local communities is important. Then alien species. We have already discussed that invasive species have become a big threat for biodiversity. And therefore, another thing that countries are supposed to do is to prevent the introduction of alien species in the country. Then GM organisms, genetically modified organisms. When we were studying science and technology, we had seen that one major concern which is raised by opponents of genetically modified crops is that it would threaten biodiversity. For example, one of the key criticisms of BT brinjal is we have hundreds of varieties of brinjal in the country right now. But if we go for BT brinjal, one, other varieties may get sidelined, may suffer, but at the same time, this BT brinjal may have certain features which makes it grow more or which makes it preferred more than other kinds of natural brinjals, and thus only one genetic variety of brinjal would be there. Then promoting public participation. This is another key component. Without involvement of people, without making people aware of, without educating people regarding this, regarding why biodiversity is important and how people can contribute, we would not be able to truly preserve our biodiversity. And finally, reporting. Every country is supposed to report. If it's a signatory to this convention, it is supposed to report to Convention on Biological Diversity about what steps it is taking. Fine. So this is CBD. If a country joins, what are the broad things that it is supposed to do? Now, what happens is that in UPSC, what kind of questions would be asked? वहां पे ना, one of the statements that they would give you would be this: the Convention on Biological Diversity is focused on which of the following? Threats because of GM crops, threats because of invasive crops, involvement of indigenous people in protection of biodiversity. There's a broad themes or statements रहेंगे. And if you have read the points that we have just discussed, you'll be like, हाँ, ये भी होना चाहिए. You do not have to cram all these 8 points. But if you have read this once or twice, it would ensure that it's easy for you to attempt a question in the examination. But a general question means examination. If in means examination you are asked a general question, ki, what are the key areas that we need to focus upon to ensure protection of biodiversity? कुछ नहीं भी आता है तो identify these 8 things, these 7 things. Protected areas पे focus करना होगा, ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज पे फोकस करना होगा, एलियन स्पीसीज के फाइट करना होगा, जीएम क्रॉप्स जो प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट कर सकती हैं, पब्लिक पार्टिसिपेशन इंक्रीज करना होगा. If you have not prepared everything, if you have not studied everything, it would be a this conventions, the key points in the conventions would be something that will be beneficial. Okay, so we were talking about like how the key points of this convention can be used even in our mains answer. If you understand the broad dimensions, by looking at the key points of these conventions, you can also broadly understand what are the key areas of concerns in the area in biodiversity. Okay, now in Convention on Biological Diversity, there are some issues, some concerns also, there are some limitations also of this CBD. For example, it does not cover existing gene banks. It does not cover existing gene banks. So the seeds having high biodiversity value, they are not being covered, and this Convention on Biological Diversity is not focusing on them, as not protecting them. Second is, it is focused more on promotion of bilateral treaties, whereas biodiversity is a global issue and countries should come together and make global norms and strictly follow that rather than going for bilateral things. We'll come to now. You may have a doubt, sir, bilateral kaise hai? We'll come to various protocols where we would see that bilateral agreements are something which are being promoted under this convention. Okay, and third, which generally is the case with everything, implementation of CBD has been very slow. Has been more or less very slow. Why has implementation of CBD been very slow? Because there's no punishment for it. If you're not following CBD, if a country has signed CBD and has not implemented it, is not implementing it, does it change anything? Is any fine imposed on the country? No. So for this reason, implementation has been poor. Now, so we would have discussed more about it if the COP50 had taken place and we were understanding ki from the learnings of last 10 years, what changes in the CBD or in various initiatives under CBD have been brought. But it is not there. The meet is supposed to be held around 20th October. On around 20th October, so it would be after your preliminary examination. So for your preliminary examination, nothing extra has been added in the syllabus. For mains, definitely there would be something. Now let's go to Cartagena Protocol on biosafety to the Convention on Biological Diversity. Look at the name, Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety to the CBD. And as part of CBD, as part of as part of Convention on Biological Diversity, we have Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. Now, biosafety किससे? Biosafety is biological safety from living modified organism or genetically modified organisms. Genetically modified organisms may become threats. Genetically modified organisms may become a concern for biodiversity. This protocol tries to deal with that. What principle does it follow? It follows the precautionary principle. What is meant by precautionary principle? If you are coming up with a new technology change, if you are coming up with a new technology change, come up with a lot of precautions in the field of biodiversity. And that is why BT Brinjal, if you look at BT Brinjal, we have been very cautious in spite of the supporters of BT Brinjal saying that no, it will have so many benefits. We are still testing it. We have still not gone for approval or anything, complete approval of BT Brinjal. So it is because of this cautious principle, and it is being promoted by Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. Uh, if you would also note that this was the first international regulatory framework on safer transfer and handling of LMOs, living modified organisms, and it promotes biosafety by establishing rules and procedures for the safe transfer, handling, and use of LMOs. How LMOs can be transferred, how LMOs should be used, and how LMOs should be handled. It provides norms, regulations for those. Now, under this, we also have an advanced information agreement. That is, if India is importing some genetically modified food crop from some other country, under advanced information agreement, the other country from which we are importing that thing has to ensure that we have proper information available. Without proper information being available to us, without we knowing all the threats, we should not be importing it. This is part of advanced information agreement. And then there is also a biosafety clearinghouse. It was established to facilitate exchange of information. So advanced information agreement can, like if I'm importing something from USA is supposed to tell me everything related to that product, that genetically modified crop. How will it do it? Under advanced information agreement, it is supposed to do it. How will it do it? It will do it through biosafety clearinghouse. Through this, all the information flow would occur. Okay, now as part of Cartagena Protocol, please note it carefully. Cartagena Protocol is on biosafety, is related to genetically modified crops. इतना तो आता है, इतना समझ में आ गया है. Now, as part of Cartagena Protocol on biosafety, we have another supplementary protocol called Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol on liability and redress to the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety. Please differentiate it from Nagoya Protocol. Nagoya Protocol is different. We'll come to that. This is Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol. So, see, now suppose India is importing something from USA. If India is importing something from USA, what happens is it is supposed to give us all the information. Suppose it did not give all information to us. Suppose USA did not provide us with all the information, and certain damage happened in the country. Health issues occurred in the country, or a biodiversity impact happened in the country. In that case, USA is supposed to pay us compensation, and that will be regulated by Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol on Liability and Redress to the Cartagena Protocol. So transboundary movement of LMO has caused damage. In that case, it provides for international rules and regulation on how the damage would be compensated. Fine. Now come to Nagoya Protocol to CBD. अभी हमने देखा है दैट वाज नगोया कोलालमपुर सप्लीमेंट्री प्रोटोकॉल, राइट? तो फर्स्ट वी स्टार्टेड विद कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी. Under Convention on Biological Diversity, we talked about Cartagena Protocol, which is related to genetically modified food crops or living modified food crops. For Cartagena Protocol, we have a supplementary protocol called Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol. It is to redress the grievances, or it is to ensure proper compensation in case the living modified organisms transfer led to some damage. Now we are talking about Nagoya Protocol. The third thing, most of the people get confused between these, and that's why I'm repeating it again and again. Cartagena is for biosafety. Nagoya Kuala Lumpur biosafety wala hi hai, but for compensation purposes, Nagoya Kuala Lumpur, and only Nagoya Protocol. The third protocol that we're discussing, Nagoya Protocol to Convention on Biological Diversity. What is Nagoya Protocol on Convention on Biological Diversity? हमने देखो, we looked at three major objectives of CBD. One objective was conservation, other objective was sustainable use, and the third objective was fair and equitable sharing of benefits. So this Nagoya Protocol, the third protocol that we are discussing, is on ensuring fair and equitable sharing of benefits. Look at the name. The Nagoya Protocol on access to genetic resources and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from utilization of those genetic resources. This is Nagoya Protocol. I hope you are able to understand this. Okay, by the way, this is nice. Like, I'm able to see a lot of you here, but अभी भी बहुत सारे लोगों ने वीडियो ऑन करके नहीं रखा है. कोशिश करो करके रखो. Like, your video will not go to YouTube. Now on YouTube, this camera is getting recorded, but when I see a lot of people on the screen, no, it also helps me understand. हाँ, इतने सारे बच्चे देख रहे हैं क्लास, इतने सारे बच्चे. मतलब मैं लाइव बात कर पा रहा हूँ बच्चों से. नॉट नेसेसरली कंपलसरी नहीं है. अगर आप बेडरूम में बैठ के पढ़ रहे हो और कपड़े वपड़े नहीं पहन रखे, बनियान पहन रखे, तो नहीं ऑन मत करना. बट अदरवाइज इफ यू keep it on, for me it becomes very interesting. Like, I feel like even in COVID crisis, even in lockdown, I'm able to directly see students. In fact, I have requested the admin team here कि यहाँ पे एक बड़ा screen लगाओ so that मैं बड़ा बड़ा बच्चों को देख पाऊंगा. It would appear to me as if the whole class is sitting. हाँ, तो we were talking about Nagoya Protocol on benefit sharing. इसमें क्या है? This provides for a legal framework on how benefit sharing would happen. इंडिया से कुछ जेनेटिक रिसोर्सेस यूएस में जा रहे हैं. इफ सम जेनेटिक रिसोर्सेस फ्रॉम इंडिया इज गोइंग टू यूएस, हाउ द बेनिफिट शेयरिंग वुड हैपन, ऑन व्हाट ग्राउंड, like how much percentage of the profit would come to India, how much percentage of the profit would go to USA, or what should be the basic principles based on which this profit would be distributed, this profit would be divided. All those things are included under this protocol. This protocol was adopted in 29th October 2010 and it came into force on 12th October 2014. Significance क्या है इस protocol का? Basically, it provides a certainty. If resources from India, genetic resources from India are being used, what benefits would India get? That certainty is being provided by Nagoya Protocol. So this would ensure that genetic resources across the world are accessible to different countries. Otherwise, we would not have been very open in making our resources available to US if we were not getting any benefit. So it is ensuring better access to genetic resources. Other than access, and because of access, this whole humanity would benefit. And after that, it is ensuring that benefits would be equally shared, fairly shared. Everyone would be benefited from it. Okay, now what is covered by Nagoya Protocol? So genetic resources which are covered by CBD are covered, but it's also covering traditional knowledge associated with those genetic resources and benefits those are arising from it. So if an MNC goes to Himalayas and use a medicinal plant, which have been traditionally used in India, so that genetic resources, the benefit that the company MNC would be getting, it has to be equitably, fairly distributed. So you would understand more about these concepts when you come to country level situation. Right now, we're talking about international efforts. We will also talk about national efforts to conserve biodiversity in the next class. Today, we'll be finishing international efforts. We'll be talking about national efforts to conserve biodiversity. And there, in India, how these things are getting implemented. We would understand that. We'll understand various debates where MNCs are saying कि नहीं इतना profit इनको नहीं मिलना चाहिए, इतना profit इनको मिलना चाहिए. Now, if a country has signed Nagoya Protocol, what are the key obligations? One is excess obligation. You have to ensure that resources are accessible. Parties have to take domestic level excess measures. Second is benefit sharing obligation. What is this benefit sharing obligation? Domestic level benefit sharing measures are to be provided by at the country level, and international level benefit sharing measures have been provided in the protocol itself. And then compliance obligation. This also you can understand. You have to follow rules, norms, regulations. Every country will have to follow that. Now, what is excess and benefit sharing clearinghouse? This is the platform through which information would be exchanged regarding the excess and benefit sharing established under Article 14 of the protocol. So basically, without sharing of information, without sharing of how much resources you have taken, how much benefits have been made out of it, it would not be possible to properly implement this Nagoya Protocol. So in a way, you can say that this benefit sharing clearinghouse is a platform which helps in the implementation of Nagoya Protocol. Okay, so I hope you have crystal clarity on what is Convention on Biological Diversity, when was it started, is India member or not, what is Cartagena Protocol. Cartagena Protocol is on biosafety, उससे आपको GM crop समझ में आ जाए. What is Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol? Nagoya's Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol is used in situations where damages has occurred because of LMO, living modified organisms transfer. And then we have only Nagoya Protocol. Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol was something else. Then we have only Nagoya Protocol. What is Nagoya Protocol? Nagoya Protocol is focused on benefit sharing, excess and benefit sharing of genetic resources. Fine. Now, let's go to CBD's strategic plan for biodiversity. We'll talk about this. But let me see if there are any raised hand so far. No raised hand. Someone is saying, Jay is asking, sir, Cartagena Protocol is under CBD. Yes, Cartagena Protocol is a protocol under CBD. Cartagena Protocol on biosafety, Nagoya Protocol on benefit sharing, those are under CBD only. And that's why you will see that the main heading here, which is there in blue color in your notes. Under that, there are subheadings under which we are studying it. First, we studied CBD, basics of it, then we are studying this protocol. Soumya has raised hand. Soumya ji, बताइए क्या पूछ रही है?
Sir, can you explain that precautionary principle of Cartagena Protocol once again?
Okay, beta. Beta, precautionary principle is this, that suppose today I develop a genetically modified crop, right? Mm-hmm. And I give it to all the farmers, go grow it, it will give you higher yield. It may be giving higher yield, but we have to take all the precautionary principles in view. Before using it commercially, we have to take all the precautions to understand whether it will not be poisonous or whether it would not lead to other kinds of problems. What would be its yield may be higher, but what would be its impact on human health? Yield may be higher, but what would be its longer duration? Yield may be higher, but what would be its impact on soil fertility? Yield may be higher, but what would be its impact on biodiversity, other forms of biodiversity which are living there? Yield may be higher, but what will be its impact on the baggage or the waste that is bio waste, organic waste that is created for consumption of animals. So we have to take all the precautions before using, before exporting, before importing genetically modified crops. That is precautionary principle. See, एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा आ सकता है सिंपल. Precautionary principle is one of the key principles under which of the following protocols? Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety, Nagoya Protocol, and then they may list some other protocols. Because precautionary principle is associated with genetically modified crops here, you should know that precautionary principle is related to this. Okay, Soumya, is it done? Like, is a doubt? Did you understand it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Victor. Okay. CBD's strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020 and the Aichi's biodiversity target. So, 10th meeting of CBD, 10th meeting of Convention on Biological Diversity, 10th COP of Convention on Biological Diversity was held in Nagoya at a place called Aichi. And there, strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020 was finalized. The plan focused on, like, if you look at the vision and mission of this plan, they wanted that this vision of the new plan is living in harmony with nature. They wanted that by 2050, biodiversity should be valued, conserved, restored, and wisely used, maintaining ecosystem services, sustaining healthy planet, and delivering benefits essential for the people. So basically, reaching that ideal stage where biodiversity is beneficial. Biodiversity is protected as well as it's benefiting us in every possible manner. The mission was to take effective and urgent action to halt the loss of biodiversity in order to ensure that by 2020 we are achieving all those goals. And here they had fixed some strategic goals. Strategic goal A, B, C, D करके ऐसे goals हैं, and under that we have certain targets. So we would again, these goals were supposed to be achieved by 2020, and none of these goals have been achieved completely. Some of them have been achieved partially. We'll talk about that too. But go through these 20 goals. I'm right, I'll not go through each one of them in the classroom. It's there in your notes. Go through 20 of these goals. It would help you in understanding what are the different ways in which biodiversity protection can be done. Because these goals are focused on biodiversity protection. What are the main heads under which you can write your answers? For example, the first head can be addressing the underlying causes of biodiversity loss. So उसमें by mainstreaming biodiversity across government and society. So one, like if you are asked, how would you ensure proper protection of biodiversity? So first heading can be mainstreaming importance of biodiversity among people and in various government policies. इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? People should be aware of how biodiversity can have positive impact, how biodiversity is crucial in their life, and how they can contribute in protection of biodiversity. Plus, government policies, government schemes, government initiatives, laws, there a biodiversity angle should be there. Is this infrastructure project going to create a lot of biodiversity related issues? Right, this can be the first head of your answer, and this was one of the strategic goals of the Aichi target. So here you'll see target 1 is focused on people are aware. Target 2 is focused on that national and local development and poverty reduction strategies and planning processes are integrated with biodiversity. So government policy schemes, programs are biodiversity focused. Target 3 is on all those incentives, subsidies, which is hampering biodiversity, should be done away with by 2020. And we should increase those incentives, those subsidies which are helping biodiversity. Then, under this only, you would see target 4 is governments, businesses, and stakeholders at all levels should take step. By 2020, they should have taken step to achieve or implement sustainable production and consumptions and have kept the impact and use of natural resources well within the safe ecological limits. So I was just giving you an example of how one of the goals and targets under it can help you broadly write a good answer in the mains examination. So, and that is why I have listed all these targets here, all these goals here. I'm not covering it in the classroom. It's all factual. By common sense, you'll understand what exactly these goals, these targets are talking about. Go through it, understand it. You would see that there are the first goal was focused on what people and government should be doing. People, government, businesses should be doing. We will see that another goal would be focused on species level thing. There would be a goal which would be focused on protected areas and all. So ऐसे अलग-अलग चीजें go through it, understand it. We were supposed to achieve this by 2020. We haven't achieved any of these targets. We haven't achieved any of these targets. Now, some more things about biodiversity that you should know. 2010 was celebrated as International Year of Biodiversity. Jab COP10 was held at Nagoya, that year in 2010, we celebrated International Year of Biodiversity. The last decade, 2011 to 2020, was celebrated as UN Decade of Biodiversity. Then 22nd May is celebrated as International Day for Biological Diversity. So International Day, International Year, and International Decade. Why 22nd May is celebrated as International Year of Biological Diversity? Because it was on this day the Convention on Biological Diversity was adopted at the UN conference. That's why on this day it is celebrated. Theme for 2021 was "We are part of the solution" this year. So prelims में कभी वो themes के बारे में भी कुछ पूछ लेते हैं. So we are part of the solutions. Human beings are part of the solution for biodiversity. That is, we can play a very important role in protection of biodiversity. वहाँ पे, this is the theme. Now, there are some other biodiversity related terms, schemes, programs, initiatives which are there, which may be useful for your preliminary examination. One such thing is Biodiversity Indicator Partnership, BIP, Biodiversity Indicator Partnership. This Biodiversity Indicator Partnership was initiated in 2000. Before getting into details, look at the name carefully. Biodiversity Indicator Partnership. So this was an initiative that was launched in 2006 to give you study related to how much of our 2010 goals are we achieving. Indicator in terms of protection of biodiversity, in what direction are we going? So it was a global initiative to promote and coordinate the development and delivery of biodiversity indicators for use by the Convention on Biological Diversity. Initial focus was this. 2010 में हमें कुछ achieve targets करने थे. 2006 में it was formed. Later, its horizon has broadened, and now it is providing these indicators. It is giving these indicators for not only Convention on Biological Diversity, but many other conventions which directly or indirectly may be focused on protection of biodiversity. For example, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity, Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, the SDG goals, national and regional agencies who are working towards biodiversity, उन्हें ये data provide करेंगे. That is the idea. of biodiversity indicator partnership. Okay, now Global Biodiversity Outlook. It is the flagship report published by Convention on Biological Diversity. CBD जो अपना रिपोर्ट फ्लैगशिप रिपोर्ट पब्लिश करता है, that is Global Biodiversity Outlook. Its fifth report was published in September 2020, and it has given details on what is the situation of biodiversity today and how much of the 2010 targets जो हमें 2020 में achieve करने थे, how much of those targets have been achieved so far. It is this report which is saying that none of the 20 targets have been fully achieved. Those 6 targets have been partially achieved. Target 9, 11, 16, 17, 19, 20. So if you'll go to the Aichi targets, ninth target is by 2020, invasive alien species and pathways are identified and prioritized. So a lot of work has been done in the field of controlling invasive species. So this is one of the targets, but still, even now, invasive species are increasing throughout the world. Even in India, we have spoken a lot about invasive species, and जब भी हम पढ़ रहे थे, like when fish में भी invasive species थे, plants में भी invasive species थे, there were a lot of invasive species. So we have partially achieved this goal. Similarly, if you go to target 11, at least 17% of the terrestrial and inland water and 10% of the coastal and marine areas should eventually be declared protected area or should be brought under area-based conservation measures. Basically, this target was focused on increasing the total area under protected area. So that has also increased. Between 2010 and 2020, you would see that throughout the world, many national parks, wildlife sanctuary kind of areas have been announced and it has increased. But still we have not reached the target, and that's why we are saying that it has been partially covered. Right? ऐसे ही बाकी सारे targets भी हैं जो there are 6 targets which have been partially covered. Very good. Yeah, Global Biodiversity Outlook, we were talking about what has been achieved, what has not been achieved. Please remember, Global Biodiversity Outlook is published by United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. It is their flagship report. Now come to Global Coalition for Biodiversity, United for Biodiversity. Last year, in 2020, European Commission had launched this initiative, United for Biodiversity or Global Coalition for Biodiversity. Under this, various zoos, aquariums, botanical gardens, national parks, natural history and science museums from across the world, they have come together. They have joined forces to make people aware. Focus is on, अब zoo में क्या करेंगे? Zoo में you will be able to contribute a lot in making people aware. Right? A few days back on Telegram channel, I had put a poll कि ये national zoo कौन-कौन visit करना चाहेगा Delhi में once things open up, and many of you had said that yes, you would be interested. So एक बार once Delhi opens up, we will plan a trip to National Zoo where we will revise everything. कौन सा endangered है, कौन सा critically endangered है. I'll give you a test there. सारे animals के पास जाके कहाँ मिलता है. अब तो ये भी पूछा जा सकता है आपसे कि वो कौन से फैमिली का है, कौन से जीनस का है, या कौन से किंगडम का है. Now we can also ask you kingdom, plant species, animal species. So we would have this kind of fun when we go for this trip. थोड़ा दिल्ली को और खुल जाने दो, थोड़ा नेशनल जू वगैरह को भी और खुल जाने दीजिए. So coming back to this, here zoos, aquariums, botanical gardens, national parks, etc. have come together, by which through this initiative they aim that public awareness about the nature crisis before COP15 should be enhanced. So COP15 was supposed to be held in October 2020, but that has now been shifted to October 2021. So अभी तक ये coalition थोड़ा बहुत काम कर रहा होगा in making people aware. Okay, now वर्ल्ड वाइल्ड लाइफ डे 3rd मार्च को सेलिब्रेट होता है. क्यों सेलिब्रेट होता है? आई शुड हैव कवर्ड इट विद साइट्स. Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. It was adopted on March 3, 1973. So this day, 3rd March, is celebrated as World Wildlife Day. Our theme for this year was Forest and Livelihood, Sustainable People and Planet. थोड़ा factual सा है, मतलब याद रखो तो रखो, नहीं रखो तो मत. Now come to pollinators and associated issues. So till now, any doubts? Someone has written a big message. Suma has messaged, sir, how there are a lot of varieties in rice itself. Like that in everything we have modified varieties in order to export a product. Everything needs to go through biosafety clearing. Is it really possible? Beta, see, variety of rice and species of rice, genetical modification. Those are two different things. So first, if we are exporting a new variety of rice, does it have to go to biosafety? If it has gone through genetic modification, yes, definitely. But we may have thousands of varieties of rice which have not been genetically modified. In India, we do not grow genetically modified rice. Right? Unke export ke liye biosafety, because those are not living modified organisms. We have not modified them in any way. So those can easily go just like that. Those rice will also have to follow certain other norms. There are other safety norms that we have to worry about, but those are not genetically modified or living modified organisms. Please note. Okay, so Suma had this question. There's no other question. Okay. Now, pollinators and associated issues. So, pollination is the process by which fertilization of a number of flowering plants take place. And there, the role of pollinators like butterfly, the role of pollinators like honeybee is very important. And that's why in recent years, a lot of focus on pollinators have been made. आप कई बार ऐसे statements देखोगे, ऐसे quotes देखोगे कि if butterflies become, sorry, not butterflies, if bees become extinct, human beings would face a huge food security problem. Sometimes it is said that even humans may get extinct. खाना ही नहीं रहेगा तो कैसे survive करोगे? So pollinators are very important. There are 20,000 species of wild bees alone. Then there are butterflies, flies, moths, wasps, beetles, birds, bats, who all contribute to pollination in one or the other way. They're not only providing us with fruits, like because of pollination, a number of crops which need pollination not only provide us fruit, but they also ensure livelihood, economic opportunities for a number of countries, a number of communities, a number of people. For example, there are few countries which are dependent on export of coffee. Now, coffee, agar wahan pe pollinators kam ho jayenge, so that country will not be able to grow coffee, will not be able to export coffee. So, whole country's economies depend on pollinators. And that's why for biodiversity protection, this pollination thing is very crucial. And we should briefly know about what is the situation right now, what are various initiatives related to them, especially the ones that have been in news. So first, we will study the situation. IPBES, first global assessment of pollinators. IPBES is a international research body which does various kind of studies. इसके आपने climate change से related reports देखे होंगे, or we will be dealing with many such reports published by this body in coming classes. But one of its important report is Global Assessment of Pollinators, which it had published in 2016. I think that's not written here anywhere in the notes, so please note that this report was published in 2016. And it said, before what it said, it was titled Thematic Assessment of Pollinators, Pollination and Fruit Production. It was published by IPBES. Now, what did it say? It said that pollinators are crucial, very crucial. 75% of the world's food crop completely or partially depend on pollinators. 90% of the flowering plants in the world depend on pollinators. 1.6 million tons of honey तो bees से produce हो रहा है, pollinators. Around 200 to 600 billion worth of annual global food production is dependent on pollinators. Agri production dependent on pollinators has increased by 300% during the past 50 years. That is, the crops which are dependent on pollinations has increased by 3 times in the last 50 years. So pollinators are so crucial. But the report also says that many of these pollinators are facing extinction, are being driven to extinction. What are the factors? Change in land use. You destroy their habitats. You're destroying habitats of butterflies. You're destroying habitats of bees. That becomes a concern. Intensive agri production. For intensive agri production, first you go for deforestation. You're destroying their habitats, but you also use a lot of chemical pesticides, fertilizers, which are harmful. Now, जब आप pesticide use कर रहे हो, तो you may be targeting some particular insect, some particular arthropods. If you remember the kingdom wala class, animal kingdom wala class, in invertebrates we had studied arthropods. You may be targeting some arthropods, but it is poisonous for others also. So butterflies do get killed or do get repelled. Bees do get killed, do get repelled. So that is becoming a threat. Pesticides, alien invasive species, disease and pest are especially problematic for managed bees. Managed bees मतलब जो लोग pisciculture करते हैं, sorry, जो लोग bee culture करते हैं, जो bee harvesting करते हैं, there a lot of diseases are spreading, and then climate change is becoming a concern. So here some suggestions are there in way forward. हमें pre में we do not have to worry about way forward, but sustainable agriculture, organic farming is something that can be crucial. We have seen that in Sikkim, with increase in organic agriculture, the butterfly population has gone up. Earlier, there was a myth that agriculture is not in sync with, or with increase in agriculture, butterfly population reduces. But Sikkim has shown that with increase in agriculture, but organic agriculture, butterfly population has actually went up. So sustainable agriculture, reducing chemical pesticides, and improving the management of bee husbandries are certain things that we need to focus upon to deal with this. Now, what is this body which published this report? Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, IPBES. What is this? Is it a part of United Nations? Is it a part of United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity? No. It's an intergovernmental organization for sure. A number of countries have come together to form this IPBES, but the purpose is to strengthen the science policy interface for biodiversity. Strengthening the science policy interface for biodiversity, that is what is meant by this. Science policy interface for biodiversity, meaning it will be providing you with scientific studies, scientific research, scientific data, so that countries can take proper decisions, proper policies related to biodiversity. So here, it was established in 2012. No, it's not a UN body, but IPBES and UNEP Governing Council, both of them have authorized, and after their authorization, IPBES is headquartered, its secretariat is in UNEP, United Nations Environment Program का जो headquarter है, वहीं पे इसका secretariat भी है. Now, broadly, it has 134 countries. 130. Because it's an intergovernmental body, it has 134 members. But other than that, a number of NGOs, a number of other organizations, civil society groupings, etc., are also part of this organization. It works in 4 different ways. One, it assesses. It does the study and assesses various biodiversity. For example, the recent report on bees, that was an assessment. So, assessment of pollinators. Second, policy support, identifying policy relevant tools and methodologies, facilitating their use and catalyzing their further development. Building capacity and knowledge, and communication and outreach. These are the 4 broad things it does. Assessment, policy support. Policy support मतलब आपको proper data वगैरह देके आपको बता रहे होंगे कि what kind of policy should you take, building capacity and knowledge, helping countries through NGOs or by other mechanisms to build capacity to protect biodiversity, and communication and outreach, again awareness generation among people and all those stuff. So these are the 4 different ways through which IPBES work. Please note that it's not a UN body, but United Nations Environment Protocol Environment Program के secretariat में sorry के headquarter में this has its secretariat. Okay, then there's a global coalition of the willing on pollinators. Look at the name, Global Coalition of the Willing, countries who are willing to contribute on pollinators. So this is a group of countries who have come together to work towards protection of pollinators. It was formed in 2016 and it has 28 signatories at present, including 17 European countries, 5 from Latin America and Caribbean, and 4 from Africa. So if you become a member of this global coalition of the willing on pollinators, you are supposed to take action to protect pollinators. You're supposed to share experience and lessons among each other about how in your region, in your country, you work towards improving the pollinator population. Then reach out to seek collaboration with, you'll reach out businesses, you'll reach out NGOs, farmers and local communities, and finally developing research on pollinator conservation. These are the major things that this body does. In 2019, it was in news because a country from Africa, I think Nigeria, had joined it from Africa. It had become the 4th country. So abhi us detail mein jaane ki zarurat nahi, you should know about this coalition. Then World Bee Day is celebrated on 20th May. So United Nations has designated 20th May as World Bee Day. So इस साल 20th May को Food and Agriculture Organization had held a virtual celebration with the theme Be Engaged, Build Back Better for Bees. तो जो आपने ecological destruction कर दिया है, now when you are building it back, build it back better for bees also. Ensure that bees or pollinators are also part of this environment, and when you are building it back, their needs requirements also has to be fulfilled. Okay, so this was it for biodiversity. Now convention on biological diversity और बाकी चीजें हमने कर ली हैं. Now we are going to UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program. Chats हैं क्या? कोई doubts हैं? No, there are no doubts. Nothing. Okay. Okay. उपमन्यु को देख के मुझे भी पानी पीने का मन किया. At least when I'm able to look at your faces now, it feels like I'm still a teacher. पिछले 1 साल से ना ऐसा हो गया कि मैं एक्टर बन गया हूँ. बस खाली कैमरे के सामने आके कुछ बक बक करके चला जाता हूँ. But when I'm able to see your expression, see you smile, see you get sad, ये एक्सप्रेशन अब ये क्या पढ़ा रहा है कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा, I feel like a teacher. A teacher should feel like that. I'm hoping जल्दी चीजें खुल जाएंगी. I'll be able to see you people in the classroom. But ऐसे ही मैनेज करते हैं. Come to UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program. Recently, a new biosphere in India, Panna Tiger Reserve, has been declared part of UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Network, or World Network of Biospheres by UNESCO. So till now, till last year, we had 11. So in India, we have 18 biosphere reserves as declared by Government of India. But out of those 18, till last year, there were 11 which were also included in the UNESCO's list. Now we have 12. Panna has become the 12th biosphere reserve from India, which has been included in the UNESCO's list. इसमें कुछ तो update हुआ, like Convention on Biological Diversity में कोई update नहीं था. But here you have at least a small update. Now, what is this Man and Biosphere Program? UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program. देखो, when we talk about conservation, sometimes we go, when we talk about conservation, we say that उस जगह पे कोई नहीं जाएगा, उसको हमने national park declare कर दिया and all. But UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program is focused more on coexistence. Man and biosphere. Human being is also integral part, integral component of this initiative. Coexistence, how human activities can go on at the same time. These protected areas or the biosphere can also benefit. So MAB, Man and Biosphere Program, is a major effort to effort at biodiversity conservation that was started in 1971. Now, this Man and Biosphere Program is being implemented through World Network of Biosphere Reserves. What is this World Network of Biosphere Reserves? It's a network of biosphere reserves across the world. For example, in India, we have 12 of them. जो यूनेस्को ने रिकॉग्नाइज किए टोटल वी हैव 18 बट यूनेस्को रिकॉग्नाइज बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व वी हैव 12 so we have 12 biosphere reserves in India. In the same way, we have biosphere reserves across the world. So the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO is being implemented through this world network of biosphere reserves. Now, when we say that this area is biosphere reserve, or when a country has declared an area to biosphere reserve, it has also been recognized by UNESCO. What are the key characteristics of that area? Or what are the key characteristics of a biosphere reserve? One key characteristic of biosphere reserve is people are integral component. Man and Biosphere Program है ना, उसे actually Human and Biosphere Program बोलना चाहिए था, but patriarchy धीरे धीरे जाएगी तो हम Man and Biosphere Program ही बोलते हैं. Like in last 40-50 years, at least on papers, a lot of things have changed. So अभी ये इनिशिएटिव शुरू होता तो शायद ह्यूमन बोला होता, मैन नहीं बोला होता. Anyways, let's not get diverted. So people are integral component of this program. People, how are people integral component? People are integral component in terms of contribution, their contribution towards protection of biodiversity, but also a lot of people may be living in these biosphere reserves. They have their traditional knowledge, उनके utilization के perspective से. Then people who are dependent on these areas for economic activities, all of them have been taken into consideration. So people are integral component. Then one other thing that we have to note is that these biosphere reserves remain under national jurisdiction. Now, when we declared Panna Tiger Reserve as when Panna Tiger Reserve has been included in UNESCO's Man and Biosphere program, or has been included in the World Network of Biosphere Reserves, does UNESCO have jurisdiction over that? No. Jurisdiction of that biosphere reserve would still be that of India. It will remain under national jurisdiction, but because it is part of World Network of Biosphere Reserves, it would be able to get various advantages, various benefits for being part of this network. Experiences, knowledges, it will get for being part of this network. Then, biosphere reserves are supposed to achieve 3 goals. One is conservation. Common sense hai. It is an initiative to protect biodiversity, to conserve biodiversity. Second is development. Man is an integral component. Man in biosphere reserve. So development को sideline नहीं कर रहे हैं. And third is logistic support. Logistic support, एक तो logistic support ऐसे सोचो. Animals corridors. Elephants, they need to, they are migratory. They're sometimes in various regions of the world, they're migratory. They have to travel from one part to other. So वहां पे logistic support की. Okay, now we will talk about these 3 interconnected functions in more detail when we come to parts of biosphere reserve, various zones in biosphere reserve, and which part performs which function. So biosphere reserves are divided into zones. This is a zonation scheme. We'll talk about that also. Then another key characteristic of biosphere reserve is they follow a multi-stakeholder approach. Multi-stakeholder approach का मतलब है in the management of biosphere reserve, local people, communities, businesses may be playing a role. And then it integrates cultural and biological diversity. Uh, uh, cultural and biological diversity का मतलब है that as part of my culture, I have been using various traditional knowledge to protect biodiversity. उसको भी यहाँ पे वैल्यूएशन दिया गया है, उसको भी यहाँ पे सिग्निफिकेंस दिया गया है. Now, what was this zonation scheme? Zonation scheme was basically this: biosphere reserves are divided into 3 zones. One is the core area, other is the buffer zone, and then there is transition. Now, core area is that area of biosphere reserve which have to be left undisturbed, or very minimal disturbance should be there. So here in core area of biosphere reserve, when you are declaring a biosphere reserve and a core area in it, there perhaps scientific research may go on, but even that research which may lead to damages will not be allowed. So this area has to remain undisturbed. The zonation needs, sorry, where were we? So core zone mein, it has to remain absolutely undisturbed or minimally disturbed. Non-destructive research and low impact uses such as education may be allowed. Research should be non-destructive. If there's a research where you'll need to cut certain plants, trees, that may also be pushed. Now, what is the function of core area? देखो बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व के फंक्शन क्या है? कंजर्वेशन, डेवलपमेंट एंड logistics support. These are the 3 functions. Core area, is it involved in conservation? Yes. The major function of core area would be this conservation. And then because of conservation, you get a lot of other services. Carbon sequestration भी होगा, climate change से fight भी होगा, biodiversity भी protect होगा, right? Pollution control भी हो रहा होगा in a way. So all those things automatically happen. Then there is buffer zone. In buffer zone, we allow cooperative activities compatible with sound ecological practices. So for example, environmental education, recreation, ecotourism, etc. may be allowed. It also acts as buffering zone between core area and transition area. In transition area, we would see a lot of other activities like agriculture may also be allowed. तो कोर एरिया को हमें एब्सोल्युटली अनडिस्टर्ब रखना है, तो बीच में एक बफर जोन. नाउ दे आल्सो हैव अ कनेक्टिविटी फंक्शन. They connect biodiversity components within the core area with the transition area. And if human activities are natural, for example, they do not affect ecological diversity there in any way, ecological biodiversity there in any way, then those human activities may also be allowed. Transition zone, outer part hai, central function of sustainable development, central role of development happens in this transition zone, where various agricultural activities are allowed, human settlements are allowed, and other than that, scientific research and all those things were anyways allowed. Generally, transition zone is not delimited. मतलब कहाँ तक जा रहा है transition zone? Generally, वो delimit करने की भी जरूरत नहीं होती है. Okay, now how does biosphere reserve gets designated? Like, how does a biosphere reserve become part of UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve? India had 7 biosphere reserves which were not part of UNESCO's network of biosphere reserve. 11 were part of it, but now a 12th one has also been added. So in exam you will be asked a question ki what is the process? Who finally designates a biosphere reserve as part of global network of biosphere reserve or part of Man in Biosphere Reserve program? So usme, if you look at the process, the final designating authority is International Coordination Council of the Man in Biosphere program of UNESCO. Okay. Now, how does it happen? First of all, states through their national MAB committees, National Man in Biosphere committees and states through their MAB committees, where appropriate forward nominations with supporting documents to the secretary. So they will basically, government will provide proper documentation to the secretariat. If government feels that norms, regulation, requirements for being declared a biosphere reserve is being followed. Second, this secretariat, UNESCO secretariat, will verify it and will forward it to advisory committee for BR for recommendation. Then advisory committee will consider it. Finally, the issue will go to ICC, which takes the decision. This ICC will take the decision, but announcement will be made by Director General of UNESCO. He would notify the state concerned of the decision of ICC. Now, what is the relation between? So this was like broadly, हम जाते हैं secretariat में जाते हैं, advisory committee में जाते हैं, finally ICC will be playing the role. Now, what is the relation between a biosphere reserve, national park, wildlife sanctuaries, and so on? Because you will see Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. Under Nilgiri, in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, you have Bandipur National Park. You have Rajiv Gandhi National Park. You have Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuaries. So what is the relation between Biosphere Reserve and these protected areas? So please note that whenever a place is declared to be declared as Biosphere Reserve, it does not replace protected area. So say Panna Tiger Reserve has been declared a Biosphere Reserve, but it would still remain a Tiger Reserve, it would still remain a national park. It is not replacing that status. But by getting included in this initiative, in the list of Biosphere Reserve, your protection status, your international recognition goes up. So existing protected areas can become part of Biosphere Reserve. You understand it from the Pannawala example. But it does not mean that BR are to be established only around national parks or wildlife sanctuaries. So ऐसा नहीं है that Biosphere Reserve would only be announced in those areas where a national park or wildlife sanctuaries exist or protected areas already exist. That's not necessary. So relation समझो, Biosphere Reserve is separate from national park, wildlife sanctuary. Biosphere reserves can include national park, wildlife sanctuaries, but biosphere reserves may also include those areas which are not already protected areas. Okay, it's an international initiative. उसको national level पे implement करने के लिए we have a biosphere reserve program, but national park, wildlife sanctuaries are part of different initiative, different. Now, if we look at the key difference between protected areas, national park, and biosphere reserve, you will see that in biosphere reserve, overall biodiversity is the focus rather than focus on a few species. This is Panna Tiger Reserve बोल रहे. So, though focus, because tiger is a flagship species, the whole biodiversity gets protected, but focus was on tigers. Biosphere reserve mein focus is more broad, more elaborate. Then it increases broad basing of stakeholders, especially local people's participation. Biosphere reserve का एक important component है. And finally, biosphere reserves are internationally recognized when compared to national park and wildlife sanctuaries, which are part of the national law and so on. Now, when we talk about biosphere reserves in India, there are 12 biosphere reserves which are part of the Man in Biosphere program, which are listed in Man in Biosphere program, and there are six which are announced by India but still not part of Man in Biosphere Reserve program. They are also biosphere reserves but are not part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve WNBR. तो सबसे पहले तो हमें याद रखना है कि कौन से 12 biosphere reserves है which are part of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. So we'll start from extreme south. सबसे पहले आता है Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. You would know that Nicobar is lying even below Kanyakumari. So we're starting from that. So सबसे पहले we have Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. Then we have Gulf of Mannar Biosphere Reserve. These biosphere reserves that I'm talking about are part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve. So we'll first list 12 biosphere reserves which are part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve. we'll try to remember them, then we'll jump on to the remaining 6 which are not part of it. तो सबसे पहले in the map see सबसे नीचे गल्फ सॉरी ग्रेट निकोबार बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व, निकोबार बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व करके आप याद रख सकते हो. देन गल्फ ऑफ मन्नार बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व, गल्फ ऑफ मन्नार इंडिया श्रीलंका के बीच में है. देन अगस्तमलई बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व एंड फाइनली नीलगिरी बायोस्फीयर. ये 4 साउथ इंडिया में हो गए, मतलब निकोबार को भी ऐसे काउंट कर लेते हैं. निकोबार, ग्रेट निकोबार बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व फर्स्ट, गल्फ ऑफ मन्नार बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व, अगस्तमलई बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व एंड नीलगिरी बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व. ऊपर जाइए, आप जाएंगे सिमलीपाल में इन उड़ीसा, दैट इज द 5th वन. Then before you go to Sundarban first go to Madhya Pradesh and there are 3 biosphere reserves there. Panchmadi, Achanakmar, Amarkantak and Panna. Panchmadi, Amarkantak and Panna. Amarkantak वो मध्य प्रदेश छत्तीसगढ़ के बॉर्डर पे है, so it's on both the sides. And Panna till last year I used to do in the second list. But from this year it is in the first list. तो 4 तो नीचे हो गए, ग्रेट निकोबार, गल्फ ऑफ मन्नार, अगस्तमलई एंड नीलगिरी. देन सिमलीपाल पांचवा था, 3 इन मध्य प्रदेश. 8 नाउ गो टू वेस्ट बंगाल सुंदरबन. 9 नौक्रेक, 10 कंचनजंगा, 11 एंड कम टू नंदा देवी 12. Nokrik, Kanchenjunga, Nanda. So these are the 12 biosphere reserves in India which are part of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Okay, take a minute, revise it, try to ensure that you do not forget it. 12 biosphere reserves. Great Nicobar, Gulf of Mannar, Agastyamalai, Nilgiri, Simlipal, 3 in Madhya Pradesh, Sundarban, Nokrik, Kanchenjunga, and Nanda Devi. Then let's come to 6 biosphere reserves which are not part of UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program or World Network of Biosphere Reserve. 6 biosphere reserves which are declared biosphere reserve by India. तो यहां पे भी नीचे से चलते हैं. सबसे पहले we have Sheshachalam in Andhra Pradesh. Then you'd go to Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat. 2 हो गए. Then there are 3 in Northeast India. Manas, Dibru-Saikhowa, and there must be one more. Dihang Dibang in Arunachal Pradesh. And then we have cold desert in Himachal Pradesh. So Sheshachalam, Run of Kutch, Manas, Dibru-Saikhowa, Dihang Dibang. Manas and Dibru-Saikhowa are in Assam. Dihang Dibang is in Arunachal Pradesh. Then cold desert. Nanda Devi, which is in Uttarakhand, is part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Cold desert, which is in Himachal, is not part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Fine. Will we be able to remember these 18 biosphere reserves and where they are located? After this class is over, also try to revise it at your own. Okay. So these were the biosphere reserves. Now I'll take 5 more minutes. Panna Biosphere Reserve के बारे में कुछ basically, like, because it's a tiger reserve also, so it's a critical tiger habitat. It's a World Heritage site. It also includes a World Heritage site in Khajuraho. You must also be knowing that the Ken River flows through Panna, and Ken Betwa का जो project है वो भी इसके through जा रहा है, and that's why Panna has been in news a lot. So when this news was published that it has been declared a biosphere reserve, a question that was raised was, is it going to impact Ken Betwa project? Ken Betwa river interlinking project, where we are planning to link Betwa river with Ken river. So that Ken river passes through this. तो आप जब link करने के लिए canal बनाओगे, तो the canal, a part of the canal will also pass through the Panna Tiger Reserve or Panna Biosphere Reserve. इससे पहले in 2018 कंचनजंगा was declared a biosphere reserve under the World Network of Biosphere Reserve. So I've briefly mentioned certain things about Kanchenjunga also, one of the highest ecosystems of the world. इसका जो core zone है, which should be remained undisturbed, which should be kept undisturbed, it has 150 glaciers, including 73 glacial lakes. The most famous one is Zemu Glacier. Then 86% of the core area lies in alpine zone, that is mountainous zone. This biosphere reserve is known for musk deer, snow leopard, red panda, Himalayan tar. We have covered all these species already. तो ये सारे Himalayan species हैं, उससे आप guess भी कर सकते हैं. Then various communities who live under this biosphere reserve include Lepchas, Nepalese, and Bhutias. Then there is Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve थोड़ा सा ज्यादा डिटेल में हम करना चाहते हैं because within it there are a number of protected areas. I've given you two images here. Nagarhole National Park, Bandipur National Park. So if you'll come to this map here, you would see that जो ये bluish वाला है ना, that is Nagarhole National Park, which is located in Karnataka. On this map, it is called Rajiv Gandhi National Park. Both Nagarhole National Park is also known as Rajiv Gandhi National Park, which is located in Karnataka. Then this one, let me use the pen. This one is Bandipur. Bandipur National Park, which is known for its tigers, it's also in Karnataka. But this is the Karnataka-Kerala border. So here we have Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. By the way, Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, this is also Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. So Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary is separated by non-wildlife sanctuary. Basically, traditionally, it also used to be a jungle. जिसको अब हम wildlife, so Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary has two parts. Why it has two parts? Because there's a disconnection in between. Why disconnection? It's there because it used to be forest earlier, but now it has been converted into plantation and all. तो उस एरिया को वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी डिक्लेयर नहीं किया है. So is there a connectivity? Yes, there is connectivity. Connectivity is through Bandipur Tiger Reserve and Nagarhole and all. But Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, when we'll come to, like in next class, perhaps when we are dealing with Indian efforts, there we'll talk about various protected area network in the country. We'll talk about various wildlife sanctuaries also. There we would see that Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, which is located in Kerala, is divided into two parts. So वायनाड इज देयर. इनफैक्ट आप देखोगे वायनाड के एक क्वेश्चन में भी आज कि वायनाड के नॉर्थ ईस्ट और ईस्ट में कौन सा टाइगर रिजर्व. तो बंदीपुर भी है एंड राजीव गांधी भी है, नागरहोल भी है, बिकॉज वायनाड इटसेल्फ इज देयर इन टू पार्ट्स, राइट. देन ऑन साउथ ईस्ट ऑफ वायनाड here we have Madhumali Tiger Reserve, which is located in Tamil Nadu. Madhumali Tiger Reserve is located in Tamil Nadu. Then you also have Mukurti National Park. This is Mukurti National Park, Silent Valley National Park, other biosphere reserve area. In fact, this map will give you bigger understanding ki BRT Wildlife Sanctuary, Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary, a lot of these things are there. यहाँ पे आप आ रहे हैं. So this is Silent Valley, this is Mukurti National Park. Where they are located, we have also mentioned them here. Bandipur National Park is located in Karnataka, Madhumalai in Tamil Nadu, Mukurti in Tamil Nadu, Satyamangalam Wildlife Sanctuary in Tamil Nadu, Nagarhole in Karnataka, Silent Valley in Kerala, Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary in Kerala. Those things are mentioned here. Okay, so let's stop here today. In the next class of environment biodiversity will be held on Sunday. Not tomorrow, day after tomorrow we'll be dealing with mains में जहां हम पॉलिटी के लिए पढ़ रहे हैं. We'll be starting with fundamental rights related topics for polity on Thursday, not tomorrow. Please note, group पे मत पूछ लेना कब है class. I need a day to prepare. So on Thursday we would have the mains lecture on GS2. Okay, चलिए, this was it for today. I'll see you in the next class. अच्छा कोई डाउट है तो बता दीजिए. Yes, एक किसी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा है Pratibha ne, sir, if 12 are part of MAB, then only 6 are left which are not part of MAB. Yes, beta, only 6 are left, na, which are not part of MAB. Seshachalam is there, 1. शेषाचलम के अलावा 3 नॉर्थ ईस्ट में है, 4. एक ये कोल्ड वैली है 5, और एक रन ऑफ कच्छ है 6. तो देयर आर 6 व्हिच आर नॉट पार्ट ऑफ एमईबी. प्रतिभा ने पूछा था. हाँ, समवन हैज रेज्ड हैंड. सुमेश हैज रेज्ड हैंड. सुमेश जी बताइए.
सर ये टूरिज्म सर कोर जोन का पार्ट कैसे हो सकता है सर? वो मतलब हैबिटेट और उनके लिए सर हार्मफुल नहीं रहेगा?
एक्चुअली टूरिज्म नहीं होता है जनरली, बट बहुत ही एक्सट्रीम केसेस में, एक्सेप्शनल केसेस में वहां भी हो जाता है. वैसे नहीं होता. टूरिज्म इज नॉट अलाउड इन द कोर जोन.
सर ये रणथंभौर जो टाइगर रिजर्व है ना सर, रणथंभौर नेशनल पार्क, सर वहां पे वो बोलते हैं कि हम आपको कोर एरिया में ले जा रहे हैं.
अरे रणथंभौर, प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, वहां ना नेशनल पार्क वाले सेक्शन पाएंगे तो पढ़ेंगे. रणथंभौर इज नॉट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व.
नहीं ठीक है सर, ये फिर कोर एरिया नेशनल पार्क का अलग होता है सर, बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व की डेफिनेशन अलग.
यस. यहाँ पे जोनेशन स्कीम इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम जोनेशन स्कीम ऑफ टाइगर रिजर्व और दैट. ओके सुमेश. चलिए गाइस, आई विल सी यू इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास. पॉलिटी मेंस करेंगे. मैंने वो आंसर राइटिंग वाला जो इनिशिएटिव था वो थोड़ा कम हो गया क्योंकि हमने मेंस के कम सेक्शन कवर किए, बट इस वीक हम बहुत सारा पढ़ेंगे मेंस के लिए, एंड देन आई विल कंटिन्यू विद मोर आंसर राइटिंग ऑन द आंसर राइटिंग ग्रुप दैट वी हैव स्टार्टेड ऑन द टेलीग्राम. ओके, चलिए, आई विल सी यू इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास. थैंक यू वेरी मच.